Since last week, Rand Water says reservoirs in Joburg and Ekurhuleni are being filled following widespread water shortages. A power failure at Zuikerbosch Water Treatment Plant was blamed to the water outage. The events of the past week have raised concerns about South Africa's future water security. Let's speak to Professor Mike Muller, who's visiting Adjunct Professor at the Wits School of Governance and the former DG of Water Affairs, on exactly what needs to be done to avoid a catastrophe. Thank you so much for your time, Professor. We do appreciate it. I think many people are panicked at this particular point about the state of water in this country. Everybody's worried that we're going to move in the same direction as we currently have with electricity. Will there be water shedding like there is with load shedding? From your assessment and recent events, do you think we are headed there?
Good evening to you, Heidi, and to your viewers, and particularly to all those poor people in the water industry who are out there at the moment trying to keep the water running. It's not an easy job. Look, you know, there's always a level of problem, you know, the short term, the medium term, and the long term. We know that there's been a short-term problem. We know that there's been a loss of electricity for all sorts of reasons at Rand Water, and that immediately reduces the amount of water available through the whole of Gauteng and beyond. So, you know, we know why there's been a recent set of water cuts and shortages, and we know that they're fixing them. You know, but once the electricity comes back on, the tanks don't magically fill by themselves instantly. It takes some time to turn them on. So, you know, the short-term problems will happen, but they're not a crisis. In the long term, we know the dams are full and there is enough water to see us through, even if there's a drought over the next few years because of El Nino or other causes. So the question is what happens in the medium term. And I think that's where people are getting confused, because until up here in Gauteng, have the Lesotho Highlands Phase 2 water project finished, the amount of water we've got available is the same, but the number of people who are using it is growing 500,000 a year. Now, if there's more people and the same amount of water, it means we've got to use less water as, you know, each individual household, and that the municipalities have got to manage the water better and help the users to manage the water better. So I think our problem at the moment in Gauteng is that medium-term one. We've got water, we don't want to use it all at once in case there's a drought, and therefore everyone's got to do their bit and reduce their water use, and the municipalities have got to help them to do it, but also to make sure that they're not losing water through leaks and through illegal connections and that kind of thing.
You touch on a very important point, and I think we must be cognizant of water usage, even if our dams are full. But there's another concern that, for example, municipalities are not dealing with water leaks and burst pipes. Rand Water yesterday said municipalities in, for example, Gauteng lose about 40% of water is lost through these burst pipes and water leaks. There's a huge infrastructure and maintenance problem. That's obviously exacerbating the problem, isn't it?
Well, you know, we must be careful about how much water is physically lost. It's probably about 25%. We talk about non-revenue water. That's water that doesn't get paid for, that might be taken illegally. Maybe it wasn't metered and billed, and some of it is leaking. So we certainly want the municipalities to do their bit and to do it better. But we do have to concentrate. As I said, there's more people, the same amount of water. We've got to share it around fairly. What the municipalities aren't doing, and I'm afraid Rand Water is part of this problem, we're not being told how much water is available per metropolitan municipality, how much water is actually being used, and where that's going. And I think we need to have that discussion. But there seems to be a continual fight between the municipalities and Rand Water, and we are not being told how much water is allocated to each municipality and how much is actually being used in those municipalities. I think if we started getting that information every month, maybe every week, in Cape Town it used to be every day, it would really help people to concentrate their minds what do we need to do to make sure that the water doesn't run out?
Certainly. I want to speak to you just lastly about whether or not we are headed for a catastrophe, given all these problems that you have mentioned. In the beginning of the discussion, you said, it's not an easy job. And I can imagine how difficult it is, because it's not like electricity. When the power goes off and the power comes back on, it's almost instant. But with water, it takes a while for these reservoirs to fill up, and that's obviously the challenge. But you have so much frustration on the ground from residents who haven't had water, some for days, weeks, some even for months. Do you think we are heading for a catastrophe or not really?
Look, if you haven't had water for a week, it's a catastrophe in your household. And we mustn't mess around with words there. But is the whole of Gauteng going to be without water for weeks? No, it's not. There's no reason that should happen. There's water in the dams. And actually, Rand Water, when it gets its electricity, is pumping what it's allowed to pump. I'm not sure that people realize that Rand has actually been told by the Department of Water and Sanitation not to take more water than can safely be taken from those dams. So they are providing the water that they are being allowed to take, and the municipalities are getting a share of it between them. Now, we need to know how much of that water is going to which municipality, who's using how much, and what is the target that they should be trying to get. We're not hearing that, and I think it is high time that the municipalities leveled with their users and said, this is what we get, this is where it's going, and this is why we need you to do better. And by the way, we also promise to do better. I think if we can get that conversation going, there's no reason for a crisis. But will people find themselves without water, for a week, for a month? I hope not. But if there are particular technical problems in particular areas, we're seeing it's happening more and more. And again, we need to make sure that our municipalities are equipped to respond quickly and to tell people what's happening, because I think it's the lack of information that is actually hurting most. We don't know when we open our tap, will the water come out this morning or not? And that's what's causing this sort of frenzy. But it's coming up October, it's hot and dry, people are going to be watering their gardens. There will be water shortages as a result, because people won't be sufficiently disciplined to leave water in the system for other people. Perhaps that's the most important thing. Use what you need, but make sure you leave enough for everyone else.
Certainly. Thank you so much for your insights. We do appreciate it. That was Professor Mike Muller, visiting Adjunct Professor at Wits School of Governance and former DG of Water Affairs.